When it comes to a fifth wheel, I'm guessing there's a little bit of a learning curve with driving, navigating, having this big, huge trailer behind you.
Yeah, so when we bought it, it is big. It's 42 feet long, and with our truck, we're about 60 feet long. And so I remember asking the salesman the day we picked it up, we had like a half a day class to go through the whole thing so they could teach us everything. And I said, okay, now who teaches us how to drive it? And he looked at us and he's like, what? Like, we don't teach people how to drive these things. Which to me, that's like a thing. Like, you let people out with a 25,000 pound setup and you don't teach them how to drive it. So that made me a little uneasy. But then about 9 months went by, Bret did all the driving, and he really needed me to learn how. Because number one, we had heard stories of situations where, maybe the guy had, fell and broke his leg, or he had a heart attack or whatever, and they're stranded because the wife couldn't drive. So we paid a professional driving service called RV Driving School. We chose to have a woman driver because she was teaching me how to drive. And she drove us around, or she drove with us. I did all the driving for 2 full days, 2 8-hour days. And I remember when she showed up, I was in tears. I hadn't slept. I was so nervous. I didn't want to do this. And she said, you know what, we're just going to sit here until you're ready. We'll just go through and I'll start talking to you about a few things. And I said, okay, but Bret's going to get it out of the campground, out of the campsite for us. And she said, well, no, he's not. You're going to be just fine. You're going to get it out of the campsite. And we went right out onto the interstate in Tennessee, Interstate 24, which is a very, very busy, very fast-moving road. And she just had me driving. And then the next day, and it was pouring down rain. We drove on roads with no shoulders in the mountains, up and down and curvy roads.
Crazy.
And then the next day, we spent almost the entire afternoon just backing it up. We went to a truck stop and she had me keep backing it up. So yeah, there was a lot of learning curve to it, but after working with her for 2 days and having her teach us how to communicate with each other, it was money well spent, and we're both very confident drivers now. He learned quite a bit too.
When we started, I had more confidence than skill. So I was able to make up for it. And thankfully, I didn't get myself in over my head and have an accident or something. But she taught us a lot.
So he rode with us, and I think you were really surprised at how much you learned. Like, one of the tips we learned is if you're ever in a truck stop and you're watching truck drivers, and it doesn't have to be a truck stop, but that's usually where they're backing up, because they don't tend to back up unless they have to. And you always back up if you're parking somewhere. You would never pull in forwards and then back up to get out. They always back into a parking spot.
Yep.
They will only use one arm on the steering wheel when they're backing up. It's actually because if you use 2 hands, you will overcompensate on your turns, and it takes so long for the back of your trailer to respond to what the front of the truck is doing that if you're using 2 hands, you tend to turn the wheel too far and you overcompensate. And so by using one hand or one arm, you have much more precise movement.
But the biggest thing we learned is the signaling when backing into a camping site, when backing into a site, and how to communicate with each other as we're backing in. And, we need to go left, we need to go right, come straight back, stop. And we'll get to a site, and normally somebody at the site, either the campground host or a friendly neighbor.
If there's somebody trying to help us, I will stand behind the person who's trying to help us and off to the side. So Bret's really watching me, but the guy, it's always a guy. The guy thinks that Bret's watching him. It's sort of a hobby of people, like when you're sitting outside having your cocktails in the evening and somebody pulls in, it's just natural that everybody's going to watch them pull in. And lots of times there are fights. And it's usually because the woman behind the trailer is going like this. Because she doesn't want anybody to see. When I'm helping him pull in, I'm doing this or this. And so we can get into sites pretty well. We've had a lot of people comment on how well we do that. We even have had people say, like a campground host once said, oh, you're never going to get into that site. They shouldn't have put you in that site. Let me go up to the office and I'll find you a different site. And he'll go up and we're like, we can get in that site. And by the time he comes back, we're already sipping cocktails outside. So, everything's set up. So that RV driving school, man, that was worth every penny we spent.
That's awesome. What was the name of that RV driving school?
RV driving school.
Oh?